Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. This is our first episode. This is your president
And Vice President.
of the SFLYAB. As can be seen from the title, we made a podcast. Woo! And it's titled Crisis Era. Woo! And I'll be the host of today's episode. And without further ado, we'll be presenting you the first episode titled COVID Effect. But before we start discussing the topic of today's episode, I just wanted to give a disclaimer that we'll be talking about individual experiences and that we cannot speak on behalf of other people, generations, or anything or anyone whatsoever.
Along with that, we are going to be talking about topics related to suicide, depression, and mental health issues in general. So if you struggle with hearing about that stuff or find it triggering, feel free to prioritize yourself and leave.
Thank you, VP. So, when thinking about this podcast, I always knew I wanted to do one, and I wanted to incorporate SFL into that as the president of the Youth Advisory Board. So, I thought, who else better to do it with than my friend and lovely VP? So, when we approached the president of SFL, we had some very interesting ideas, but she said they were too deep for the first episode. So we decided on what she wanted to do, which is the COVID effect. We were both intrigued because we see remnants of this virus in the kids that we tutor every day, but also in ourselves. So when we took this idea and started thinking about all of our own experiences, that's what made us land on this idea for today's podcast. I know for me, COVID really affected me the most academically, especially in math, because for one, I didn't go to school hybrid, even though my middle school gave me the option. So when it came time to choosing whether I wanted to stay home or do some type of one day in, one day out, I just decided for my mental health to stay home because I was already not in a good place socially when in middle school. And that kind of made my decision on why I wanted to stay home. But since I stayed home and didn't do hybrid, I was kind of neglected by my teachers, specifically my math teacher, because she never showed up. So all the work that we had to do was on our own, at our own pace, which is good for some people, just not good for me because I just didn't really want to do it. So I got a tutor. Woo! And the thing about this tutor is that apparently, allegedly was a was a teacher at the high school that I was testing into. So I didn't think anything of it. If we were paying $60 an hour, this better be the best tutoring service I ever got. But no, it wasn't. So when we got there, it was a very interesting environment as we were still in COVID. Not that the guy believed in COVID, so that was already kind of a red flag. But then he started like actually tutoring me based on the lessons that we had on Edmentum, which was the service that we were using. And the environment in which we were getting tutored was just very hostile because he would just call himself a dumb, stupid idiot head that just didn't understand because he believed that I didn't have to use a calculator in order to be successful. But anytime I didn't understand something or I got a question wrong, he would just continue on saying, "Oh, you're just so dumb, dumb, dumb." And it's like, at that point, are you talking to me or are you talking to yourself? And it was just, it was very degrading, even if he truly was talking to himself, because I was genuinely there to get math help. And as someone that was going into it from advanced classes, I've always been in advanced classes. I wasn't used to being a failure. And I was specifically getting help during the end of the year because I needed Algebra 1 in order to pass and move on and place into this high school. But even after his help, I'm pretty sure I did the final exam at his house and I didn't do good. I failed. And looking back now, my final grade in the class was a D. I've never gotten a D before. I've been on honor roll my entire middle school experience, and I've always been a high achiever, good grades kind of gal before that. So it was very much a wake up call to see how COVID really affected my ability to understand math when I'm not in a set classroom environment. And that not only hindered me in middle school, but I did see remnants of that in high school when we had to do a placement test after algebra 2 to determine what type of math class we're going to be in. And just seeing that placement test, I think we had 20 minutes. Do we have 20 minutes?
Yeah, around 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, it was a front and back piece of paper, and I saw that and I was like, yeah, I'll attempt it, but I'm not the type of person that can work under pressure. They did tell us, they just didn't tell us the day in which the test would be. So that they gave us the test right after a math lesson, so I was already kind of burnt out because algebra was already not my strong suit, as I barely had a foundation. Oh, that was during COVID. And during that time, I was like, I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of problems that I genuinely just don't know how to do. And we didn't have a calculator. It was under pressure. And as someone that had a fear of being put on the spot at the time, it was not my cup of tea. So I didn't do the best. And that ended up placing me in the lowest math class. Am I happy about it now? Yeah, I got a good grade in the class. But that really did set me up for failure, I guess. Just understanding the fact that COVID set me back so much that I couldn't even do a placement test into one of the three classes that we had at our school. I just got placed into the lowest one automatically. And I'm not mad about it. It's just you're dealing with the after effects of what we had to deal with during COVID. And I'm not the only one that had to deal with this experience. So if my little VP wanted to touch on her experience and how COVID affected her academically, if you wanted to talk about math or a different subject, you can, but here it is for you.
Similar to you, I also had a really deep struggle with math during COVID because during that time, I had to take a honors algebra 1 course to get into this high school I wanted, similar to you. And the issue was that it was self-paced, and I don't think you can trust an 8th grader with self-pacing themselves. I know a lot of students are disciplined and have that instilled within them, but I was immature, young, and also struggling with my own mental health issues during that time due to COVID because of the effects of isolation and just overall that doomed miserable feeling of the everyday life and not having anything to really look forward to. So during that period, I probably built up over 300 or 400 assignments. And yeah, so around the end of the year, I realized, oh, I'm not getting my credit. I'm not getting to that school if I don't finish that. So I speed run through the entire thing in the span of 3 to 4 days. If you think I learned anything about algebra during that time, I did not. I had no idea what was going on, and I just wanted to complete the assignments to get the credit and leave. And it trickled down to the later years in my life because I struggled a lot with geometry, which doesn't really have algebra intertwined with it. But because I don't have a lot of practice with math in general, I really struggle with grasping those concepts. And that caused me to struggle in sophomore year because I was placed into what you call a bubble kids class, where basically it's students that really struggled with math, and that's why they need a little bit more help or a little bit more leniency in the class, different from other students. And during that time, I felt really stupid and I felt like I lacked a lot of knowledge during that time because during sophomore year, you're also learning algebra 2, which brings up everything from algebra 1, which I just frankly did not know because I like
You
sped
sped
through
around it.
yeah, I spread through the entire thing. And the thing about math is that if you don't have your foundational learning blocks, then it comes back at you in different math courses throughout your entire lifetime. It basically just haunts you forever, and it's very very apparent at certain times, like around senior year we're doing pre-calc, which is founded on literally algebra. And I noticed how it took me maybe like a few more hours of effort in comparison to other students, because I just did not have that foundational knowledge. I had to relearn everything. And even for my math placement for college, I had to relearn so much. It took me over 3 months to catch up on stuff that other people already knew, because I just didn't have that knowledge, and it kept coming back to haunt me. So it's something that had a really devastating effect, that it was like a dominoes effect where it just constantly impacted other things and other aspects of my life, because it affected my grades, it affected how affected my confidence and how I perceive myself, and just overall it shows that COVID isn't just a one time event, but it can have lasting effects that trickle for years and impacts you in a way that just really shapes how you view yourself and how your knowledge is impacted. And additionally with that, my algebra 1 teacher, because it was self-paced, I did like she didn't really want to help me like at all. So whenever I did reach out for help, she was extremely hostile, and she's just like, "Can't you just ask the website?" Which had like some weird question based system that was completely useless. And with my experience with her, it made me really distrusting of teachers, as I felt like they weren't there to help me, even though that is their job. And that also impacted my high school career as well, because I don't really ask teachers for help that much. And I don't really reach out and ask for tips on how to do better on tests. I feel like I have to do everything independently because of that experience. But in freshman year, I had a math teacher who just emailed me saying, "Hey, I noticed you're struggling with these concepts. I'm always down to tutor you or help you out." And I sent him a big paragraph saying how much it meant to me that he reached out to help, and how much I appreciated that he was taking the time to help me understand these difficult concepts. He left me on red with that one, but but it's just, it really does show how COVID also impacted the teacher's passion for educating students as well. Because I could also feel that the teachers that were teaching me virtually felt really saddened and depressed by the fact that we're not learning interactively anymore. We're just watching them blab their mouth through a screen. And it just demonstrates how a lot of people are affected in different ways because of COVID, especially with education.
Yeah, I agree with the stuff that you brought up previously, especially with the college placement exam for math. When going into it, I wasn't expecting much. I genuinely thought I wasn't good enough because I was placed in the lowest math class at our school. So going into it, I was like, okay, I don't think I can be an engineer. I'm not getting placed into engineering math, and that's not the type of mindset you should be going in to take a test or do anything with, really. But that was the reality. So when I first took the test, on the standards of trying to be an engineer, I bombed it. I was placed into the lowest math class again, and the category was geometry, meaning that all of my hard work over the course of 4 years once again was down the drain. But I didn't let that discourage me because I had 5 more retakes. But before you retake, they make you take 5 hours of review math, and they do that based on the score that you got. And out of 100, I got a 39 or a really low score at like that. So I was very discouraged. I was like, I'm not gonna become an engineer. I transferred from psychology to engineering. This is a flop already. I just wanted to give up. And knowing the type of curriculum that I'm having, because it's already accelerated, I was very discouraged. But I did the 5 hours and I made it work. So when I retook the test, I got placed into Calc 1, and all of my hard work over the course of those 5 hours was and taking notes was what made me better. Because when we were in COVID, I didn't take notes on that algebra 1. I didn't even know what was going on. My teachers didn't show up for any of the courses. I had a Zoom call twice out of the course over 2 years that we were in lockdown. So it was things like that where I didn't really I didn't have a foundation for math, and that really affected me now. And it really took personal conviction and being like, hey, you need to stop beating yourself up. You have these retakes. You have an opportunity to be better. So take that opportunity, because how would you know if you improve if you just keep being down in the dumps about being a flop the first time? And thinking about that really influenced my mindset about how COVID affected me in terms of how I perceived academics in general, because going into high school, I didn't really want to learn. I didn't have the personal conviction. I just didn't want to be there because, like we said, we had to test into the school, and that wasn't my decision. But I also didn't like my home school, so there was very much cognitive dissonance where it's like, do I pick a school that I don't like but will be the best for me in the end, or should I stick with this school that didn't want to be in the first place, and I hate everyone and I just hate being there every day? So it was that mindset of like, it's a lose-lose situation, but because of that I just didn't want to learn regardless. And that mindset really influenced how I perceived academics, because our school has a system where we have a core curriculum that we need to set, and that will determine if we graduate or not. So doing that core curriculum, I didn't understand the purpose. I didn't see why we had to do the things that we did. I didn't understand why I'm doing this extra work in comparison to my homeschool counterparts when it's just high school. If this stuff was so important, my homeschool would be teaching me the same things, right? But no. Now that I'm a graduated high school senior, I understand the importance and the values of the lessons that we taught us in going through this rigorous, oh my gosh, this rigorous course. It made me appreciate some of the teachers that we had at our school that make me found love in the academics again, because going into it, I was just getting by. I was doing just enough to get my A's and B's and call it a day. But it was certain teachers that were put in my path to really sit down and talk to me and explain to me why we're doing the things that we're doing, and why we we should find value in the lessons that we're taught each day. And because of that, I found a newfound love of academics in general. But besides the academic portion of how COVID affected us, there's really another part that goes hand in hand. And I kind of mentioned it briefly, and so did my VP, but it's the social aspect, right? And I don't want to just be yapping, yapping, yapping all day. I really want to let my VP talk about her experience, because we do have some similarities, but we also have some differences as well. So if you want to go ahead and take over, you can.
I also want to know from your story that it shows that even if COVID affected us in really severe ways, there's always a way for us to persevere and fill those gaps in knowledge or whatever we lost throughout that journey. And it shows that with just enough persistence, you'll be able to succeed in whatever path you go through, even if you feel like you've lost a lot of knowledge or lost some sort of passion during that time period. But for my personal experience, I really wanted to talk about personal conviction, because what's that? Who's that? Many people lost their sense of direction because of COVID, because the solitude influenced many people to lose motivation as people could no longer connect with others and explore life in a way that they actually enjoy, because just being around your family isn't enough. The human connection really needs you to go out and experience things for yourself, make friends, find things that you really enjoy and that call out to you. And losing those 2 years, it wasn't just like having to wait to finally take those masks off and feel safe from the disease, but it's also trying to regain your life back after 2 whole years of feeling lost and being stuck in this like constant loop of either waking up, going through Zoom calls and assignments half awake, or struggling with your like home situation. If a lot of people lost their jobs during that time, so it was really stressful and a really depressive moment in history that a lot of people went through. And I think one issue that spoke to me the most was just rotting the rest of your time on the phone every single day, Bed rot is something that's a little bit more popular now and it's being brought up, but it's a huge indicator of someone going through a really depressive state. And it's a miserable feeling to feel as if you have nothing to look forward to, or as if there's you're just like trying to pass by each day and you stop looking for things to care about or things to make you keep pushing forward. And that's the effect that COVID had on a lot of people. There was a lot of negative news going on in the media, and like a lot of protests, and just everyone felt this sense of doom, and they were put into survival mode where they tried their best to simply survive another day rather than think about the future or what they really like or are passionate about. And that's why school felt uninspiring for many, because a lot of people during this time of isolation started thinking, what's the point of that? What's the point of going through with things anymore? Because it all seems pointless. And that's why the survival mode really shaped how a lot of students um learned after COVID ended, when they finally went back into school, because they no longer had that thirst for education, or they didn't have that curious mindset. And thinking about it now, I feel like when I was in survival mode during that time, it was really difficult to care about my future, care about my career, because each day really felt like I was just trying to get through it and go to the next one. And I know a lot of people felt the same way about that. And in a sense, we lost conviction during that time to move forward. And it shows that isolation can really cloud someone's sense of purpose. And that stuff really lingers with you, even throughout the years after COVID.
Thinking back about my middle school experience, I already felt that before COVID, I'm not gonna lie. But COVID really exacerbated the the human emotions that I really never tapped into or knew that existed with me personally, because I've always been a happy kid. I've always had something to live for or look forward to. But being locked in a house with nothing to do until very much later, it felt like there's no point of trying to do anything if you don't know how long this situation is gonna last. Like the VP said, there was this sense of impending doom, and it's like, if I'm gonna die, then why should I care about what I'm doing now? And socially, I was already in a bad spot, because middle school is not the it's not the nicest place to be. But I was lucky enough to have a situation where COVID, it's like, yeah, there was negatives, but it also helped me out because I was not already in a good mental space. And bullying sucks, but hey, COVID got me away from that. Hashtag bullying doesn't rule. But bullying was bad for me. It definitely put me in a bad mental space. But because my mom prioritized my mental health enough to say, hey, you either go to school, get sick, or home and be mentally sick. And like, looking back at it, I would have picked the mentally challenged part because I was already not there. But the thing about COVID is that it really birthed some of the unique experiences that I've had privilege to as a result of just having a lot of time on my hands. And that resulted in me finding newfound friends and people I'm still close to today on video games like Among Us. Hey! And video games like Among Us, where it really sparked my passion and things that I was starting to lose interest in, as I wanted to be a forensic scientist, and I like understanding why people do the things that they do. And with a game like Among Us, it's all about social deduction and telling why people lie, or figuring out the truth behind people's actions. That sparked my love in a class that I haven't had for almost 2 years. And because of a game like that, combined it with the opportunity to make new friends, that was my social interaction that I lost. But not only that, I was introduced to color guard and marching band. And even though we had to be 6 feet apart every time we performed and we have to do precautions during COVID, and we had a show about veterans and honoring the lives that we've lost during this tragic time. That really sparked my love in dance, which was something that I lost because of COVID, right? Because my dance studio closed down in 2019 and I haven't danced since. And because of that, I just lost that sense of joy and passion for the arts. But because of COVID, I found a new passion that allowed me to combine my dance skills with something new, which was twirling a flag, which worked out. So even though there was definitely negative portions of COVID, which affected my mental health in too many ways, but it really helped me. And even though there wasn't an end in sight at the time, it filled me with something that I would never want to go back and change, because if I changed the past where I said, "Oh, I don't want to do marching band," that I wouldn't be the person that I am today. Additionally, it did make you feel pointless. It definitely made me feel pointless at times because like I said earlier, I didn't see a point in going to these Zoom classes that barely happened, or logging into Edmentum to try to get an education, or see a point in doing anything when everybody else was passing, but I wasn't. And the irony of COVID is, like I said, I chose to just stay home and not do hybrid. So while I was failing Algebra 1, they just told everybody else, oh, yeah, you get an A. It's like, well, you didn't tell me that I didn't have to take the final exam. So you costed me, you threw me under the bus so everybody else could pass. It's like, it was stuff like that where the school wasn't right for me, but because I was taken out and removed from that toxic environment, COVID really helped me shine in different ways socially. So I don't know. There's really pros and cons with everything in life. I'm not saying that people deserve to die or anything like that. It was just, it was right place, right time for me, where COVID also was the reason why my mom was able to find out about the high school I attended and get all these wonderful opportunities, because she saw how unhappy I was at the school that we were at. So she found time during a time where all we had was time, if that makes sense, where she could find a better school for me. And as someone that has moved around to different schools a lot, this one, I just had to stick out regardless.
On the topic of positive aspects of COVID, I feel like one thing is that I really had a struggle grasping the concept of impermanence during that time, because COVID showed how no matter how good your life is, suddenly everything can change in an instant, and that comes with all things. Impermanence is within friendships, life, your health, and it's something that's hard to grasp for a lot of people, because although bad and hard times are also impermanent, which makes it a good thing, the good times are also things that don't last forever. And this like ephemeral stance of life just made me question like if there really was a point to anything. So during that time I started seeking out ways to really cope with that. And one way was through just distractions such as gaming and trying to find friends online. And that's how I met two of my closest friends online through this really cringy anime Among Us server. And even though during that time it was, if I look back now, I'm gonna cringe a lot at what we said and what we did. But it was something that really brought me comfort, because I felt like even if these good times aren't gonna last long, it's still a memory that's precious, and it's gonna continue to be something that reminds me of what we all hold dear and what we all want to continue striving for in the future. It also felt like the loneliness that I felt during COVID, because although I feel I can argue that online relationships don't really feel the same as in-person relationships, just being able to interact with other people in the same situation as you, even if it's through a screen, it really makes everything a lot more easier to bear. Thinking about it now, I feel like COVID, I hope COVID doesn't happen again, because, yeah, it was devastating for many people. But let's hypothetically say that we all went on lockdown and we had to be isolated in our homes for another 2 years. I feel like now I can see even clearer what I could have done with that time. And one of my regrets is that I didn't really take advantage of it, because nowadays it feels like time is passing through our fingers and there's not enough time for anything. But overall, I feel like despite the devastating consequences of COVID, there was also an opportunity to make it make it a time that really provides you an understanding of yourself and your passions. But it was hard on many people, and it was devastating because a lot of people lost their passions during that time.
But yeah, like what you were saying, even though looking back at some of the relationships we made online, they were very cringy. And if I could go back and change some of the things I said, I definitely would. Because I know I was rage baiting back then too. But it was a more of just yearning for some type of connection that I couldn't get in person because I already didn't like the kids at my school. So I didn't really talk to them, but I also had nobody else to talk to in my real life. So yearning for those relationships on the games, or even though some of them were kind of questionable, it did allow me to have a relationship with some of the closest people that I have in my life. Shout out to my Pookie, because I met one of my closest friends from, like I said, Among Us, and we've been besties ever since. Yeah, locked in our 9 to 11 hour difference, and it's really, that's the power of that social isolation. And like we said before, it's not a good thing. Like a lot, millions of lives were lost, but there was also lives saved in that tragedy. So as we conclude our very first ever podcast episode, I wanted to give a shout out to all of our socials, as we've been working really hard over the last couple months to brainstorm ideas and other avenues to get engagement from not only the general public, but also other members of the youth. When going into schools and talking about what we do at single family living, oftentimes there's a reoccurrence that the youth don't feel like their voices are being heard. And as someone has that has fallen victim to those feelings of inadequacy or just hopelessness, that no matter what I do, no one's gonna care, it's really important to give members of the youth a platform to not only share their experiences, but uplift other members of the youth. Thus, anyone is welcome to come on the podcast. And don't forget to check out the Single Family Living YouTube, where we repost our TikToks and highlight some of the things that we've done during the past year as the Youth Advisory Board. Additionally, follow Detroit SFL on Instagram and other social media platforms like Blue Sky, Facebook, etc., etc. Also, us on Instagram at SFLYAB. Also, us on TikTok at SFLYAB4, because we forgot the password for the other account. And please, please, and thank you in advance. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. So peace, love, and stay safe. Bye.